What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, man. I did a video just like this for iOS 13 on what devices for specifically iPhones were going to get iOS 13. So I figured I would do the same thing for iPads. Now, this one's, I think, a little bit more confusing, and I'll explain that in a second. But pretty much if you own the newest iPads, the iPad Pros, the iPad Air 3s, the iPad Mini 5s, whatever, those are going to get supported with iOS 13 without a doubt. But with iOS 13, the support is going to be really weird because a lot of the iPads are going to be unsupported. It's going to be pretty surprising, actually. Now, again, this is all my opinion, but I've been following iOS for so long. You know, if you guys follow my channel at all, I review every single version of iOS, even the smallest ones, the 12.1.2s and the 11.1.3s and all those things. So based off that, I kind of came to a consensus of which iPads could potentially be supported, which iPads could potentially not be supported anymore. So starting off, I want to get the basics out of the way. Like I said, all the major iPads are going to be supported, the newest ones. Pretty much all the iPads that I can think of, at least from like 2016 onwards, those are all going to be supported. All of the iPad Pros, in my opinion, are also going to be supported. So this is an iPad Pro right here, but if you guys don't know, the first iPad Pro that ever came out was the 2015 model, the 12.9-inch one, the humongous one. So that one actually had the Apple A9 chip. So in my opinion, that one is definitely going to be supported. So that makes me say all of the iPad Pros from the 12.9 inches to the 9.7 inches like this one, they're all going to be supported with iOS 13 because they all have the Apple A9 chip and they all have 2 gigs of RAM. So I said earlier that pretty much all the devices with at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, I know I said that wrong, are all going to be supported with iOS 13. So the biggest iPad Pros, the smallest ones, all of the iPad Pros are going to be supported with iOS 13. And now going along with that, all of the iPads that I can think of that have 2 gigs of RAM are all going to be supported. So all the ones that have 2 to 3 to 4 to whatever how many they have now, all of those, in my opinion, are going to be supported, but there's a caveat to that, and I'll go into that in a second. And following that same confusing trend, all of the devices that have the Apple A9 chip, all of those are going to be supported as well. So that's including these iPad Pros, the iPad 2017, the iPad 2018, the iPad Pro 10.5 inches, all those iPads are going to be supported with iOS 13 as well. Now here's the confusing aspect of it, okay? Pretty much all of the iPad Airs are going to be taken out, okay? Except the newest one, the iPad Air 2, which I have right here. This has been an amazing device to me. I like it a lot, and I just did a double eye swap on it yesterday. But here's the thing. I think the iPad Air 2 is going to be unsupported with iOS 13, so it's not going to get iOS 13. And the reason I say that is because this device, even though it does have 2 gigs of RAM, I think it's a very capable device. I honestly don't even see my iPad Pro like being so much faster. I mean, it probably is, but like I don't really notice it. The main reason that makes me say this is not going to get it is because it has the Apple A8 chip in its core. So even though it might have the Apple A8X chip, it's still the A8, and I think Apple is going to unsupport this. And because they released the newest iPads, the iPad 3 and the iPad Mini 5, that makes me believe that this device is not going to get iOS 13. But this one came out in 2014, so that kind of makes a little bit of sense. But here's the even more sad aspect of this. The iPad Mini 4 came out in 2015, the same time that the iPhone 6s did, but Apple put the Apple A8 chip inside of it instead of putting the Apple A9 chip, which they had at the time. So even though that also has 2 gigs of RAM, and mixed in with the fact that Apple just released the iPad Mini 5, meaning they don't want the mini line to end, that makes me believe that all of the iPad minis, the 1, 2, 3, 4, all those are going to be unsupported. I know the 1 was already unsupported, but the 2, 3, 4s, all those are going to be unsupported as well. So right now, all the iPads that are supported, we're going to be seeing the iPad Mini 2, 3, and 4 possibly taken away with iOS 13. And we're also going to see the iPad Air 1, definitely the iPad Air 1, but the iPad Air 2 unsupported with iOS 13 as well. The good news is, like I said, we have all the iPad Pros still supported, but that is a pretty crazy thing. Again, I'm not 100% sure if Apple's going to take away the devices with 2 gigs of RAM or the Apple A chip or both, but I don't see what else they could do because I still think the devices with 2 gigs of RAM are completely capable. But again, iOS 12 isn't that bad, so even if it ends at iOS 12, it's not that big of a deal. Just keep in mind that Apple could possibly take away all the iPad Airs and all the iPad minis that are supported from getting iOS 13 unless you have the newest one. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it at. That's my opinion. That's my hypothesis. I'm kind of curious on what they're going to do. Again, there's no way to validate this, but if I had to put a number on it, that's what I would think they would do. But if I had to come up with a device list, this is probably what I would end up with. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that don't mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it don't mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.